for you, Chin Huat, I would like for us to explore this question of, and I think Trisha has provided a really great segue into this, which is why is it that all over the world, not just in Malaysia, right, but we are seeing that liberals or progressives or whatever you want to, which term you want to use, are finding it so difficult to counter right-wing populist narratives, to counter extremist narratives. And Trisha actually hinted at this, right? There is a real branding problem with liberalism, with liberal democracy. When asked about using those particular terms, people seem to be afraid, spooked, not like that, those words. So, Chin Huat, my question to you is quite short but not easy to answer, which is how can liberalism then stay relevant in the wave of populism that is becoming such a problem in all our societies? Please.
Good morning, and thanks, Ira, for that question, for to Ideas for inviting me again after 10 years. Now, that question is basically how to be popular without being populist. Because we all want to be popular, but most of us may not want to be populist. I'm going to address that question in three parts. First is to define what liberalism means, because we do have many ideological relatives that not necessarily who we are. And second is to define populism. And third, to come back to the question, how can we respond to the wave of populism? Now, when we talk about liberalism, I think at least in the Malaysian context, in where idea is driving, we are not talking about left liberalism in the American context, which is often associated with wokeism. So we may dread inequality, injustice, but we do not think that every success is a product of some historical injustice. That's very important. But equally, we are not, liberalism in this context equally is not right libertarianism. We may be very wary of big governments, of government's inefficiency, but we do not go as far as screaming that the taxmen are robbers of people wealth. So we are basically taking then a very centrist position. No, but why are we centrist? Are we just basically afraid of being in the left or the right? Are we just centrist because we sit on the fence? And being centrist is electorally a liability. You see, you may think that decaf coffee, low-fat milk, what else? Light Coke, 0% beer, all this may be healthier, but for most consumers, they lack authenticity. In the case of Malaysia, we would say we want something gao, not decaf, right? So that makes you unattractive. And I think that's eventually come back to the questions of centrists. Any centrist would have that problem because you look just basically boring. You can be healthy, but you are boring. But we are not just centrists. I think liberals need to ask, we need to separate ourselves, distinct ourselves. You talk about branding, product differentiation from other centrists. There are people who are centrists simply because they dare not to take a stand. But why are we centrists? I think it comes down on two things. One, because that we are open-minded. We do not subscribe to any particular sets of dogma, except that reason and, by extension, science. We believe that people are different, and the best way for people to attain their happiness is for them to make their own decision as far as they do not obstruct others from doing the same. Now, leading from that is basically, or you can look at it, this attitude, is that we cautiously believe in human nature that allow us to see a disconnect between intention and outcome. When we talk about the invisible hand. When we say that people would do good things for you, even they don't love you. Now that's a very important intellectual breakthrough. Because if you go back to 100 years ago, we like to believe that intention leads to outcome, right? To be able to see this is basically to be able to understand and grasp unintended consequences. So that's who we are.